Welcome to the Above the Line podcast. I'm Scott.
And I'm Charles. How are we feeling this morning, brother?
Excited. Obviously, this is our second week recording.
Yes. A little nervous. The pressure's on.
Funny, eh?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
We're probably more nervous
This time.
than we were.
First time.
time.
I think we came in pretty hot last week. Whoosh. We came in hot. And with some epic topics. And we're so grateful. We've had such awesome feedback and encouragement and all that from everyone. So really appreciate people tuning in, people listening, following us on Instagram. It's really awesome. Above the Line _podcast. Give us a follow. We appreciate that. But yeah, discussing this morning, how are we feeling?
I mean, yeah, again, just to add to your points, the feedback, the support, the encouragement's been amazing. And I think, coming in with our first, we had no idea how this was going to go. We're getting some really cool feedback and support, which is awesome. And I think for us, it's like now feels like there's more of an expectation.
Totally. We can set the bar pretty high.
Yes. And it's like, and I guess in conversations with what the plan of attack was for today's episode, it's like, sort of feeling a bit of the pressure now.
We started overthinking a little bit about, trying to be trying to be cool almost, or like make sure we provide some value. But it's like, let's just have a chat. Let's just keep it relaxed. Just do what we do, stick with a purpose, and good old yarn.
And I think it was just bringing it back to that, because I think, sort of got taken away from us a bit. Like, we need to, do this or do that. And
totally. And with everyone's cool feedback and stuff, we're like, we've been built up. It's so awesome. It's so encouraging. But we just need to just stick with the plan.
But we sort of discussed this morning, and there's something that I've got coming up that would be really cool to lean into. But before we get into that, I'll just throw it over you. How are you feeling, mate?
Very similar to what you're feeling. And I think, we just need to stay true to what we've come here to do and just have a good old yarn, talk a bit about life, be open about how we're feeling. And I think, that's just the reality of day to day and doing this.
In this podcast,
Totally.
It's just about imperfect, I guess, in a way, perfect timing. I guess This morning, I was pretty distracted.
Yeah.
Got a lot going on. I'm speaking at this event tonight. At the LinkedIn Local Connect event, and I've chosen to attack a pretty big subject.
Totally.
A subject that I think is forever evolving.
Totally.
And
why don't we just dig into that today? We've had some other plans, but why don't we just dig into that? Because if it's on your mind, it's topical, might help you prepare.
I think exactly. So
is it a good plan?
Great idea, Charles.
Right, thank you. I love it.
I think coming into this podcast, it was like a bit distracted, but perfect opportunity to just flesh out the topic. So I'm speaking at this event. My headline or subject is creating your vision, knowing your value, and finding your voice.
Nice.
So vision, value, and voice. And so massive words. I mean, we could pretty much do multiple episodes on all of those three aspects. And so my approach for the talk and some of the points that I want to get across is around the importance of having a vision and what tends to happen when you don't have sort of a clear idea around where you want to be, and how you can approach creating a vision for yourself if you don't have one that like inspires and excites you.
Totally.
Value, again, I think it's just knowing your value within. And we'll touch on these, and really keen to hear your thoughts, and I can bounce some of the things and key notes that I want to make tonight.
Nice. Awesome.
And lastly, voice. So I think this is a platform where we can get our voices out there through having some conversations that are navigating some spaces that we're still growing through.
Totally.
And again, not knowing what impact that voice can have.
Totally.
And I think that power sits with everyone. And it's just whether or not you choose to share and contribute. And I think some really magical stuff happens when you lean into your voice too.
Totally.
So
It can just be that small word of encouragement that someone then decides to make their choice, that can have immense impact.
exactly, or just dropping opportunities of hope and excitement,
Totally.
which is super cool. And you don't know when that happens.
Totally.
But yeah, man. So
vision. So as speaking from not only a financial planner, but from an accounting background to now a business coach, how do you see vision? And obviously that can be from a business perspective, but probably most importantly, and topic for tonight is personal vision. How do you figure out what your personal vision is?
yeah, really, really good question.
Big question.
And you're right. So at the beginning, it's setting the context to go, although this is a professional setting, there's lots of businesses and people there that are that way inclined and wanting
Business
to
people,
build themselves. Yeah. So, but it is starting with the personal vision first. And even in a business context, it's bringing it back to that personal vision.
Yeah.
Because if that's not right, then you're sort of focusing or starting with the wrong point in mind. Because ultimately it comes back to you and what you sort of want to achieve or what you want to aspire to. So biggest points in the creating a vision, I think it's around 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is actually working out who you want to be
Nice.
as a person. The second part is working out where you want to be. And so who you want to be is really about understanding or identifying the values that mean the most and that are the most important to you.
Yeah.
And choosing to live by those values. You mention a lot around that values-based living aspects, and it's sort of leaning into those things, but knowing who you want to be. And I think like further on from that, it's like we all play different roles in our life. And so we could be fathers, we could be mothers, we could be colleagues, friends.
Brother, sister,
Yeah.
son, daughter.
And so it's just doing a bit of work to dig deep into like, well, what type of father do we want to be? And how does that line up into the values? Or what type of colleague do we want to be? What type of leader do we want to be? And again, making sure that who we want to be here aligns with the values that are most important to us. Because if there's conflict there, then again, we're using energy trying to battle that conflict that's happening internally.
Totally. So I think so often a thing that ends up driving us, if we want to be real with ourselves, is selfishness. And I think ultimately humans are naturally selfish and self-focused and taken care of. Self becomes number one. And I think, what sort of father do you want to be? What sort of husband, wife, whatever that looks like, colleague, whatever that looks like, is trying to take some of that selfish piece out of it and actually see how you can give. How can you be a giving leader? When selfishness is removed, that is where the sort of purest heart-living, heart-formed, true values come into place. Because with selfishness as the front frame, how can I best serve me? It's just a me focus. So when you come into these harder situations or just life situations where you have to make a hard decision or have a hard conversation of where do we go, what do we do as a boss, as a leader, whose story do I listen to, take selfishness out of it and just come back to values.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because selfishness is a word that creates some polarizing perspective on things, and it depends on what you have defined as what's selfishness.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, you mentioned naturally we are selfish or lean towards, looking out for number one.
Totally.
People fight against that. In that they will challenge that so much and be out there. And so it's sort of understanding that piece that I guess society's like, if you're about that, it's not really, it's a little bit frowned upon.
Well, and I think And then there is other parts of society that absolutely emphasize, absolutely be your self, and selfishness is the way to climb the ladder and be successful. So there's quite a few different ways society looks at selfishness.
And that's that balancing act and where you sit alongside that selfishness continuum. But I think like the main point that I was getting at was that the first step needs to be selfish in terms of putting the time to identify what is important to you and how you want to be. And then it's going out there and giving and contributing with that at your core. Because if you go out and start contributing and giving, you don't actually know whether you're being true to yourself or what aligns with you. So if you haven't taken that selfish step first to go, actually, what am I going to accept and what am I not going to accept? How am I going to approach situations and conflict and challenges? Do that work first to then have the rock or the foundation to go out there and contribute with those values in mind. Otherwise, we let people dictate who we form or who we become.
Yeah. I think a helpful distinction, because I absolutely agree with what you say there. The word selfish for me is, from my upbringing, is quite a trigger word. And from my upbringing, I'm like, I want to be the least selfish possible. So I agree with what you've said there, but the selfish word doesn't align with me. And so I think, and this has been a real battle, internal conflict that I've been working on in the last 12 months in particular. And probably about 12 months ago, I realized a really interesting distinction, which helped. This might, suit some people, might not suit others, but it works very well for me. There is a selfish, and I use selfish as the, I guess the more negative direction of what selfishness can look like, because that can be quite an ugly thing. And then there's self-love as the positive. So totally agree. You need to take that time of self-love to focus on yourself, understanding that vision and values so that you can then go out with purpose and share and give to others. So I think we have some interesting different views potentially on this, but for myself personally, that's how I've distinguished them: selfish and self-love.
Yeah, and I guess like that's I appreciate the differences in that we have here.
Totally.
And but I think, sometimes it's like, we also could be talking about the same thing. We're just using different words.
100%.
And so like you mentioned before, selfishness is a bit of a trigger word because of your history and experience.
Totally.
For myself, it's probably doesn't carry that weight. Yep. And so this could be in a situation where, like, when I'm saying selfish, I'm meaning self-love or in trying to
100%
communicate self-love for you.
Yes, because I've just to make my mind at ease, that's where I've just made the distinction so that in my mind I understand the two separate, whereas you say we're talking about the same thing but just slightly different terminology.
Yeah, I think so, because selfishness, it's something that I guess I don't view negatively, and I do have a view of it being positive.
Interesting, eh?
Again, in the well-being space, looking at that, it's sort of the internal, the mindset stuff, and then going out and looking at the connected and then the functional space. And so I've always been of the mindset, look, I need to look after me, whatever that looks like. And again, that could be like self-love.
Totally, yes.
I need to look after me so that I can be stronger and look after the others around me and more of them for longer. If I'm keeping healthy, then I can be more contributing to those relationships, as opposed to if I'm only got so much and I'm battling internally with these conflicts and don't really know where I'm going.
Totally.
It's super hard to be there
to sort those out. To
support someone.
So you can, yeah.
And so taking that time, to me, is a selfish act, but I lean into it and go, actually, I want to be here. I want to make a massive impact. To achieve that, I need to be selfish to ensure that I'm in the best possible state to go out there and be that for people.
Totally. Absolutely. So, yeah, totally agree.
but again, easily interchangeable with an act of self-love.
Totally.
It's just a different thing. I think we get into like terminology stuff.
We get into
a
I think
lot,
last night over dinner we had some discussions over terminology differences. I love it. It's good. It's robust discussions. We love it.
I love how you don't back down either. Like it's.
I still, I like my distinctions.
Yeah, and like and again, they're your distinctions, and sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, no, I can get
Makes
that.
sense. I'm like, I don't quite understand that.
But sometimes it takes me a while.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Very good. So we've touched a bit on vision. So like a bit more practically speaking, how do you begin to ponder what is my vision? Like, do you lead clients through a particular exercise? Like, what do you want to, something you want to briefly touch on there?
Yeah, so like there's a number of ways you can cut it, from like really simple ways in terms of, for example, one of the prompts tonight is just going to encourage everyone, and lucky this is coming out after so people don't not come along because they hear what's happening. It could be as simple as like actually just closing your eyes, visualizing yourself 12 months down the track, and seeing yourself standing there feeling like you've just had the best year ever, like you've just smashed it. And then going, what's happened or what have you done to put you in that state or to make you feel that way? And some of the things that flash to mind or come to fruition is like, those are some of the signals to be like, those are probably the things that are important to you, and can you get some more clarity and lean into or dig deeper into like what they look like?
Totally.
And what needs to be done to achieve it. So from that perspective, it's like the vision is just like in a state of you absolutely celebrating and smashed it, to then bring it back now and go, okay, now what's going to lead me to that state?
Yes. And then that probably leads into the values, because vision is really that as you say, that end state, that end picture of, hey, in a year's time, 30 years' time, whatever that looks like, I want to be this kind of person. And then that can relate very much to business. What do I want my business to look like? And how does my business impact people? And then I guess that leads into the values of, well, who do I need to be today? What choices do I need to make today that will lead to that future? And in fact, how can I bring that future vision to be present today?
Yeah, it's and this is why like the vision picture, like, you could just have that where you want to be, and that's something that you aspire to. The who you want to be is the really important part, because a vision, like a goal, is sort of like a point in time that you may achieve, or, it's like a delayed gratification type thing. So you may not be happy until you sort of reach that point.
Totally. And then even when you do, like particularly if it's financial, when you even then do hit that point,
it's not quite.
It's never enough. And where's the...
Yeah. And so like the vision piece is really important, but how we choose to walk through life and the person we choose to be can look very different between now and the vision. So across that gap. And so for an example, you just mentioned money. So say like my vision is to have, I don't know, like be wealthy or rich, whatever that means to you. Let's say, for example, it's $1 million in the bank. And then you start to work back and go, okay, what do I need to do that? So if you're not sure on who you want to be when on the way leading up to that, like there's multiple paths that can get you to that vision. And one could be, I'm going to rip people off. I'm going to be really hard in business. Like I'm not interested in making friends or building lasting relationships. It's just going to be money, 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 and whoever I need to stand on to get there, boom, I'm doing it. So that's one type of person. And you can achieve a goal being that type of person, unfortunately. Or you can choose to be like, hey, I just want to be really pleasant to deal with. I want to be understanding. I don't want to be greedy. I want to create win-win situations. I want to build like lasting relationships. I want to deal with people that I really enjoy. And I'm not going to fight tooth and nail to the very bottom line of things. And I'm going to be honest, transparent. And so that's a different person.
So different.
But both could end up at the same end point. But again, looking back, are you proud of the person that you were to achieve that?
Absolutely. I think that's so powerful, so incredibly powerful.
And the other thing is, so the vision is like that endpoint, like you mentioned, but you can be who you want to be today, like you just said, and that's the choice. And so that's not a delayed thing. That's just who do you want to be, and start acting like that person.
Totally. I think this just made me think of a couple of things. Being present, and it's about the journey and not the destination. So that I am such a person that I look to the future and be like, you know, whether it's, I want $1 million, or, you know, I'd love to have a classic car, or, you know, whatever those like goals, which generally always end up relating towards money, seem in the future and almost unattainable. You know, some financial goals I've hit, were goals, but I've moved past them and I think nothing of it. And so what's going to be different to other goals? Because money focus is, it's not being present. It's always so future, and so I don't have enough today at times. And I think there can be different perspectives in that, but it can be I don't have enough today, and you're not actually just being present and enjoying today. I have been so focused on the destination rather than enjoying today. And like you're saying, if you're focusing on the values of who you are, that is going to impact you being able to be more present and actually enjoy the journey rather than focus on the destination and not being happy until you get to the destination.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And you know, you talked about money and that being sort of a default for many people, but it applies to everything.
True.
The vision is a state of better or more ideal or certain things.
That could be around fitness. That could be
it's
around
anything.
Totally.
It's like living situation. It's time.
Totally.
It's relationships. It's sort of acknowledging that you may not be where you want to be right now, and so it's understanding that, okay, I've got some work to do to get there.
Yeah.
The who you want to be is to go, it's really at the essence, my value isn't defined by getting there or not. And I can be proud and show myself self-love through the values I carry and how I go about achieving that every day.
You just touched on something really powerful there. The destination doesn't define your value.
100%. And that's something I've always grappled with, especially growing up, starting a career, very goal-oriented, very driven. And that drive was largely because I was going out there to try to prove myself.
Yep.
Because unless I achieved that goal,
who am I?
And where's my value? Because I've done nothing. But I'm a person, I've led values that are really close to me and that I've been able to stick to. And there's times where it's not always the case. And so it's just choosing what you do moving forward from that, whether you learn, grow and develop. But that gives you the power to appreciate the journey and Absolutely. To be proud of yourself for just going after it. Like, because life's hard.
Totally.
And like you just giving your best day in, day out is something to be massively proud of. And you're open to the cool things that can happen along the way.
And appreciating what you have done. Hey, I've turned up to the gym this morning. And that you should be grateful about, because just turning up to the gym every day, but it takes one day at a time to achieve your fitness goals. So does turning up to work. So does being a good father, husband, whatever that looks like, one step at a time.
Yeah, and so the practical steps for the vision of where you want to be, figure that out. Like design a life that actually absolutely gets you pumped and excited. Like if you're thinking about your vision going, oh yeah, that'd be nice. Like probably not that important to you. Probably not going to be able to drive through those tough periods where you're being challenged to push through. Once you figure out and get clarity on that picture and what it looks like in your mind,
you put a bit of fire inside of you.
You know, and that could be 10 years, that could be 5 years, who knows? But when you bring it back to really simplify it and to avoid being overwhelmed because it may just be so far out, what you need to keep in mind is that all you need to do is take the first, tiniest, smallest step towards that vision and keep doing that. And every time you make a step, you are moving closer
100%.
to your vision, and there's progress. And so break it down. Once you've got that high level, break it down into actually what is it that my first step is. And that could be, if it's a gym goal like you just mentioned, that could be, I'm just going to put my running shoes on in the morning.
Totally.
And I'm just going to do that, and then I'm just going to go to the gym. Like, if that's how small you need to start, like, that is amazing, and that's moving you closer. And then you can build, and you just keep that motion. You be proud of yourself for winning, for getting the shoes on. You know, that's building some self-discipline. Even though it's small, it builds up.
Compound effect.
Compound effect.
Read the Compound Effect book if you haven't already. We talked about it in the first episode. What you've described there, compound effect, so powerful.
Yeah, and so when you are feeling like your vision's like, man, that's massive,
Overwhelming.
oof, bring it back. The next step, smallest step. And that's the power of the vision. Without that vision, and I guess just to wrap up from my end, without a vision, you lack direction. And without the direction, you lack purpose. And so we're really just drifting and letting life happen to us, as opposed to controlling and setting that direction to our ideal.
And then acting step by step, day by day towards that vision, and just trusting that the actions that I take will get me to the end result.
Exactly. And we can feel that. It's like, is what I'm doing moving me closer to my vision or pushing me further away? And without that vision to bounce it off, you just don't know.
I just had a crazy thought. Imagine if a vision, rather than, it's all both and, rather than just having a vision that is related to the future, and then you find your ways towards it, what happens if your vision was the future, but your vision actually was also about the journey? Imagine if your vision was the fact that by day you're going to hit the gym, day by day you're going to put your running shoes on, whatever that looks like. So actually the vision is the journey and the outcome. Whoa.
But therein lies, because where you're going, who you want to be is the journey.
Totally.
So you choosing to take those steps is you being who you want to be.
Totally.
And so that's how you can enjoy the journey.
Absolutely.
Move towards a reality that absolutely gets you excited, and you go out there and
make the most of the journey. Have the journey as the vision and as the enjoyment of life.
Oh, smash it. It should fuel you.
Totally.
Because why not?
Absolutely.
Why not have the best life?
Life's too short to not enjoy it and to not be present. I just think about the last 10 years of work, and it has just gone in a blink of an eye. It's incredible. Time flies. Make the most of it.
Yeah, I think time flies, and time could be one of our podcast in itself. Because, I've got some views on that, and it's really cool. But look, we're sort of nearing the end of our episode here. We've managed to get through a quarter of what I have to talk about tonight.
Knew this would happen. I love it.
And exactly, like, these are huge loaded words. I'm feeling the pressure, to be honest.
Yeah.
I hope I can do a good job and show value or provide value to others to hopefully inspire them. But
I think based on other discussions we've had, other episodes, you will provide value if you stay true to your heart, speak from your heart, and just be Scott. Don't be someone that someone else wants you to be. Just be you.
Tony Robbins?
Yeah. Just turn on your Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I love it. Shut up. Tony Robbins.
All right, team. We have to wrap up now.
Sweet.
Been awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Give us a follow on Instagram, and always open to any feedback or comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Have a great one.